Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. What can AI do for you? I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on September 11th, 2025. Kris. AI. What can AI do for you? AI can do a lot of things. It can take notes. It can summarize things. It can create code. It can generate pictures, presentations. I can go through an entire list. But one thing that I'm wondering about is what can AI do for your social skills? Or how does AI impact your social skills? With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with two guests about that. We had the opportunity to speak with Andy Wingate and Phil Berrill.
Hello. Hey, Phil.
Good afternoon.
Oh, hey, Phil.
Hey, Phil. Phil. Andy,
good afternoon.
You almost have the same backgrounds.
Yeah. One is real.
This is real, mine isn't.
One of us real.
I was confused for a moment, and you were both next to each other on my screen. So for a split second, I thought the two of you were together.
If I put it like that, it's like, you know.
If you do it like that, it looks like you two are in the same room together.
I need to I've got, here's the ball, Phil. Ready, catch.
Yeah, you can tell this one is a man. It's far too neat and tidy. Those shows.
I rearranged my room. I mean, I'll tell you about it another time.
No, tell us.
It's like the beautiful background. Like the sales director guy at my place, he redid his background, and it's like he's got nice things, and he's a seller, right? So it's all about maybe someone sees something and they're like, and it sparks up a conversation. He gets a connection, right? That's part of the reason. It just looks really well organized. Like, I'm going to do the same. So I rearranged my desks. They used to be here, and now they're here for the shelves. And then it's like, now I've got to tidy my shelves. It's on the list. Get it one day.
Yeah, no, it's. I think with the backgrounds, it's very difficult, and now with everybody being remote, which is an important topic for. This is important for the topic we're going to talk about today.
It is very important.
With everyone being remote, I think a lot of people spend time on trying to, like you said, tidy up their backgrounds, when sometimes it's like, let's just see how you really work. Where were you really at?
Yeah. Some people in garden sheds and garages and all sorts.
Exactly. There's some amazing backgrounds out there. I think like top of the tree is Soran, from the Microsoft. And then sometimes he's shared a picture of his desk layout, and he's got the widest screen I have ever seen in my life. It is like it's wider than my desk.
I got one of those.
Me too.
49
I have one of those too.
Ultra, yeah, Brad too.
I used one once when I was working from home, but at my brother-in-law's house, and he had a giant one. And you know what? I prefer two separate screens. I think, it was like, when you maximize a screen, it's like, bosh, it's like so huge, Anyway.
That was my hesitation for going to it, because Kris has that big, it's concave. It's not flat. Yeah. I had 3 individual high def monitors, 27-inch 5K monitors. And then everyone was telling me, get this one, you'll love it. And I'm like, okay, well, how much viewing screen do you have? Because I have the 3 screens, like you said, because I would snap them up and do things. Yeah. Now I'm used to this, and I use the Mac. And what I started doing was that monitor, you can have half a display and half a display.
Sure.
So that if you do the maximize, then it will just do one half.
That's good.
But I've graduated to now having just one big screen, and I position the windows that I want. And I was even looking at something today, and I maximized it. And you have this entire big real estate of all these screens.
How many Q tiles can you get, on the Business Central landing page on one of the big ones, eh?
It's great. It's great for data migration, though, because you can see the whole package.
Yes,
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, 100 columns.
Yes, so it's tough, but you get used to it. I vowed I'd never get used to using the screen, because I was cursing at everybody, after.
Oh, you
afterwards.
Are keeping it.
Yes, I am. Well, Chris knows the story because I was cursing everybody. I'm like, why did you guys make me buy this? And I ended up ordering it, and now I'm sticking with it. I like it. I like it a lot.
I think in the in the problem definition, there's like wicked problems, difficult problems, and then there's first world problems. Right? This is definitely
yes.
This one isn't. You don't club this one together with climate change, or like what's the best political system to run a country or whatever.
Do I go with a 49-inch concave monitor or whatever the size it is, or do I go with 3 27-inch monitors? I don't know. It's a tough
choice.
Problem. It is a tough problem. But no, it's a great conversation. Appreciate you both joining with us today. And I enjoyed the conversation we're having. And it's nice to be able to have that conversation. It's nice to be able to talk with people. But with everybody working remote and now with AI, I noticed a big change in conversation with individuals. But before we start talking about that, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourselves, Andy?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Andy Wingate. Thanks very much for having us on the podcast again. I'm a Business Central MVP. I've been working on partner side for about 3 years, and before that I was an end user, so kind of was involved more on the IT side, and had a lot of fun deploying nav on-prem, but haven't looked back since going over to the partner side. We get to have a lot of fun and work with a lot of different interesting people.
Excellent. Phil.
Thanks. Yeah, my name's Phil. I'm Business Central consultant, and I've worked on the partner side for about 12 years now. And before that, I was an end user and qualified accountant.
Excellent.
Wow.
That end user to partner to end user, before we jump into it, I think that's a good sweet spot, because I think being an end user or being a partner helps you understand an implementation from a different point of view, because you understand from a user's point of view what it takes to go through an implementation, or what is required from implementation. And as if you're a partner, and as if you're a user and having worked with a partner before, or having been a partner before, see, I'm all tongue-tied today, I'm all excited. You have a good perspective of what a partner has to manage and go through from implementation. So I think you get a nice blend of perspective there.
Yeah, and which one is the gamekeeper and which one is the poacher? I don't know.
I've often wondered.
I don't know if that's a bit of a British expression, turn of phrase. We say like poacher turned gamekeeper. So you were like robbing from the estate, whatever, stealing the deer or pheasants or whatever, and then you work for the estate, stopping the other poachers. So I think it's a bit of a joke, really, but I mean, obviously,
I like that. Are you a poacher or what? A poacher?
Well, it's an English, it's a British expression, I guess. It's called poacher turned gamekeeper. It's kind of like you've changed sides.
I got it. So if you went from a partner to an end user, you're saying you went from being a poacher to a gatekeeper. And if you went from user to a partner, a gamekeeper, gamekeeper, because it's the game, like the deer or the pheasants on the Lord's estate is his game, and he might hunt his game, and the poachers are trying to get the game. So anyway, so just so that everybody knows, Andy went on record today saying partners are poachers.
Yes. Well, the joke is which way round is it? And it's better not to say one or the other, right?
I understand what you're saying, but wink, wink.
Phil, let's hear what you have to say. But since me and Phil are both end users gone to partners, I think we'll probably provide a strong united front on. It's a fantastic journey, because you get that industry knowledge, you get the language, you learn a lot of nuances, and then when you go on the partner side and you're talking to another company that's in that industry, you've got like the secret sauce, and the people, you can build that trust. So that's building trust. That's an important soft skill, and there's nothing better than, Phil, if you're talking to a construction company, what's the kind of stuff you tell them that a regular consultant just wouldn't know?
Yes, I suppose having that industry knowledge is super important. It's kind of, we say, speaking their language, and it's true. And I think it's the common problems that face the industry, or kind of specific use cases. So in construction, it's things like the cost reporting on projects, specifically kind of cost valuation reports, contracting side, subcontractors. But I think above that, as well as having been through the implementation, as a user, seen the highs and the lows. You've also had that opportunity to actually use the system in anger as well, and that counts for a lot when you're talking to customers. You're able to tell them what made a difference to you as using it, what are the best shortcuts, what are the things to avoid.
We'll get to this topic soon, but I think this is all related. So do you feel that with the conversations that you're having with a user as a partner, you can build sort of a stronger relationship with them, or a trust or a level of understanding, because they feel that you understand them more because you in fact had been in their shoes before?
That's a great question. I think from my side, putting ERP systems in, naturally you're dealing with finance teams more often than not. And it certainly counts for a lot, kind of having that accounting background. I think that goes a long way to helping to build that trust. I suppose it's difficult to say if I wouldn't have that, not having been an end user, not having been in those shoes. But yeah, I think it's just having that sort of general business experience. So rather than just being a pure techie who's maybe just learned the system, you've kind of got you've got those soft skills that kind of Andy and I have been talking about there, and you've been there, you've done it, you've kind of walked in their shoes, and I think that shows just naturally in conversation sometimes.
I think it helps with the conversations too, because like I know there's times where you're, now that you're in the partner side, when you're speaking to a prospect, you introduce yourself, and sometimes I throw it in there and it's like, hey, look, I've been in that industry specifically as an end user. And so it kind of creates that kind of bond relationship. It's like, he's going to get what I'm trying to say. So it kind of builds that relationship at the very beginning. So it does help.
Yeah. I think it's the soft skill is the building trust is kind of a generic, like a general soft skill, something that's incredibly important on projects, because there'll always be bumps, and if you've built up that trust, you've got a bit of like collateral to spend. Hopefully you don't go in overdraft on the trust, right? You do still need to deliver the results at the end of the day, but if you with the industry connection, I think it really you can shortcut. Can you shortcut it? I mean, you can just build that trust a fair bit quicker. And sometimes it's just the practical, I used to work in like transport. So if someone wants to come talk to me about lorries or weighbridges, I kind of know all the crazy detail, and they're like, oh, okay, he knows his stuff. It lays the fears early on, perhaps.
Yeah, I read a book. Recently, Wired. It's called Wired for Love by Stephanie Cacioppo. She's like a neuroscientist, and she talks about how we create connections. So common interest, when you have a relationship, tends to have a quicker trust at the very beginning. So as long as you keep that and maintain that commonality, it's a lot easier to stay connected with somebody. So it's always
totally.
That's very helpful when you're.
No, I can see that. Where you sort of build a bond, because whether that common interest is something you like, a scenario that you're in, or a situation that you're in, it can tend to, I think, build that bond. I've heard a phrase several times in this conversation, and the phrase I've heard is soft skills.
That's right.
What are soft skills? And I think, as I hear it so much, I think it must be something that's rather important. So, what are soft skills, and what's the importance of them?
Phil, do you want to open up? And
I'll let you open up, Andy.
Okay, fair enough. So soft skills, I guess the simplest definition of soft skills is everything that's not a hard skill. And a hard skill is like technical knowledge of a system. Maybe it's VC, maybe it's SQL, maybe it's M365 administration, right? But it's like there's a system out there, there's a technical thing out there, and you either know it or you don't know it, right? That's the kind of traditional hard skills. And soft skills are usually the kind of skills that are a little bit more difficult to put in a neat little box. Very often it's usually relates to interpersonal relationships, interpersonal skills. And so they're the kind of skills, communication, empathy, problem solving, creative thinking, things where it's not, if you want to configure, I don't know, that submission process in Business Central, there's an exact process you follow, and if you do it slightly wrong, it maybe doesn't work, right? That's the hard skill. Whereas, let's say I wanted to convince Brad to go on a trip to Vegas with me, like there's no like definitive way that I can do that. I don't know how keen he would be. I'd have to like suss out and find out like how can I press his buttons? How can I convince? How can I entice him? You've got to dig, and you've got to be creative, and you've got to be very reactive, and you've got to understand people's emotions, and it's a real kind of complicated
like that
area,
professional
right?
and personal, right? Like it's more of an emotional aspect of it, like a personal connection versus like professional. I'm just here to do some work. That's kind of like, that's hard skills.
But I think there are some professional soft skills as well,
right?
So in a professional, like, the kind of our area we're really interested in is at the minute is what's changed about soft skills and the need for soft skills in the age of AI. So with all the different AI tools that you've got, what impact does that have? Like, were soft skills important before? Obviously, yeah, I think they are, and and how important are they? Maybe they're more important now, and why is that? Like, what does AI do to that? So, I don't know, Phil, do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of describing it, and I think it is the sort of people side of what we do. So it's interacting with other human beings, I suppose, as opposed to the hard technical skills, as you say, Andy. So it's things like being able to listen, being able to converse, being able to sometimes lead a room and lead difficult conversations. And it's kind of I guess it's the people side of what we do as consultants. So I always like to think it's kind of 50% technical knowledge of the product and 50% being able to implement that. And that involves kind of working with other teams and progressing that project.
So many things come to mind with everything all three of you had said. I'm almost getting the chills thinking about this with these soft skills. And so we go with the soft skills more as could be some communication type and emotional type interactions. I don't even know. I have about 300 questions that just popped into my mind. I want to frame them. I think I'll be specific with them or try to be selective on my choice of which ones we start with. But you're talking within the AI era where AI is doing a lot for us. But with that communication, what impact do you think AI has had on the communication? But also, what about generationally with communication and soft skills and crossing generations?
Impact on soft skills, I think, right?
Impact on soft skills. And I think it's because where it's coming into play, because I've, as younger talents coming into our industry and the younger talents becoming professionals as we all were younger talent to previous generations in the workforce. I think everyone grew up differently. Whereas there's a group of individuals that grew up texting. There's a group of individuals that grew up with they didn't even use, a lot of them don't even have telephones or tellies. What do you call them, tellies over there? They don't have telephones.
Like a landline, sort of like.
Yeah, okay, a landline. I knew that from the Army. But so they don't have a landline in their home. And it's oftentimes when you communicate with them, they prefer not to talk. Right. They prefer that you text them.
Yes.
For example. Or if you look at sometimes with the emails, the emails almost start to form to be text-based type emails where you have a couple sentences, you go back, without a thought. I want to go on to this AI thing as well with that, this whole email communication with AI, which I think impacts soft skills. That's why I'm saying, I just have a bunch of questions about this. But that's where I'm going with generationally with soft skills and the importance to be able to communicate across generations with your soft skills in this technical age and the impacts of AI on that as well.
Yeah, lots of questions there. One of the things I'll just pick up that Phil said.
I'm not done.
Oh. Well, I think one of the small things before I hand over to Phil is you mentioned like leading the room, and I'd written down. I was sort of trying to collect my thoughts before the call, and one of the things I'd written down is presence. No amount of AI summaries or sentiment analysis can deliver. If you're going into a difficult meeting, as Phil said, there's been a misunderstanding with the CFO. You can't AI yourself out of that one, right? I suppose you can augment that meeting by using AI to prepare, and so you don't miss any like emails or whatever. But you've still got to do the delivery. You've got to get in there. You've got to appear sympathetic to the problem, understanding. You've got to be. Maybe you need to give some ground. How much ground are you going to give? That's the negotiation soft skill, because you ultimately want to bring them forward on the journey. So that's I think like there's this combination factor where if you do it right, like you could use AI can give you all the answers, right? So it's like a loaded gun. Like you've got all these answers and you can just blast them at the client and be like, well, we're going to do it like this because AI told me. But if you haven't used your own intelligence, judgment, creative thinking to like correct it, because most of the time with AI generated stuff, it's a starting point. I think like whether you're writing an email, whether you're writing a report, yeah, it's like, oh, that's not a bad idea, but I definitely wouldn't say that thing. So the AI bit is this. It's like this loaded gun sometimes. So that was on the communication side.
Yeah, I think that probably for me makes face-to-face communication all that more important these days, because where AI is probably making the biggest impact at the moment is in written communication, particularly emails, and we see. Sometimes it's not always that obvious, sometimes it's very obvious, but we definitely see clients kind of emailing us with AI assistance on there, and we use Copilot and tools like that as well to kind of help us writing emails. Whereas when you're face-to-face with somebody and talking to them in a room, you kind of know you've got that sincerity there, and you were talking to them and not a machine. I suppose when it comes to the younger generation, I was kind of reading a study a few months ago where they're saying the prevalence of conversing over messenger apps and so kind of the generation after us have got a preference for things like chatbots as well, and that impacts us implementing systems in there because they become more important as one of the communication channels that we open up to our customers and the customers who use our systems. So it's having an impact, I think. Probably the pandemic as well, and more people working remotely, and kind of not sitting in an office together, not having face-to-face meetings is probably changing the way we operate, changing the soft skills that we have and we need, particularly around training as well. I know personally I found it difficult to adapt to training large groups of people using things like Teams, because you're just not able to read the body language in the same way.
That's a really good point, actually.
That's a very good point, and that was a question that I had on that as well, as just to jump in. These are some good things to think about. Is the use of and also want to go back to the AI, the use of video with this remote communication, and that's what I often say is a lot of people are shy or bashful. I mean, I think early on in the pandemic when everybody was remote, everyone was a little shy about being on camera.
We were always like, it was embarrassing to tell the other person they were on mute, but now it's like, oh, by the way, you're on mute. Like that. We got used to that.
Normal.
That's normal now.
Yeah.
But no, I like that you had commented about the AI when you're writing an email, right? Like you can use that tool to really build out your response or your email conversations. But the moment that you are face to face, like you can really tell if do you speak like that on a daily basis? And so when you get face to face, it's like, you don't sound like that, right? Like that doesn't sound like what you just wrote. Like you can't even put sentences together properly.
So the language could change, which could impact your communication or trust, since we were talking about trust with an individual, because if I've only worked with you via electronic communication, then when I meet you face to face and I speak differently, that doesn't necessarily say that they speak poorly or they use incorrect grammar or language. Maybe the word choices are different in the sentence structures.
Maybe the Copilot took out all the swear words and you're usually a potty mouth sort of thing,
I could talk to you all the time. I want to start learning British English. The potty mouth.
No, just back to something that Phil said earlier. Something just occurred to me is one of the things I've been reading is that the importance of the fundamental importance of soft skills, and as you upskill in AI tools, whatever they may be, you need to have a similar training in soft skills. So imagine this, right? When we were in offices, when you're around the water cooler, you're constantly exposed on social situations. You're naturally getting trained on soft skills because you've got to manage the political situation in the office, the social scene. You're kind of exposed to it, and you're just forced to be involved in office politics. You can't completely avoid it. You're always going to get drawn in a little bit. And is that like a natural training? And compare that to massively working from home over the pandemic. And yes, we're going a bit back in the office now, but it's not 9 to 5, Monday to Friday like it used to be. The importance for training soft skills, specific training like dedicated to soft skills, is now so much more important because and it ties in with that younger generation as well, that they start work and they never met anyone for real. Like, they posted their laptop. We have plenty of people start at our place where the first time they meet, it might be 6 months, 8 months down the line when we have a company all big get together sort of thing.
That's interesting.
That is, and then I just sorry, Brad, just to jump in really quick. I do want to put it out there too that this AI Copilot tools, although you can use it to formulate a response or an email, but I do want to point out that there are others that where it doesn't translate really well because maybe English isn't their first language.
Sure.
And so we do have to really put it perfectly. It's like soft skills is really important, because even though my grammar is great, right? Like my response is great, but when I'm speaking with somebody, you can tell like, hey, that person's English may not be their first language. And so you kind of have to understand, like, yeah, they put it properly, but when they execute that, it's like, oh, okay, that's not how you typically talk because English is not your first language.
So to go back to Andy, these are all good points, and Kris, that's one part of it. It goes with what I picked up from Andy from what you're saying is, now I have to always, I'm selfish. I just translate it so that I can understand. So we learn to speak as we're aging, growing up, by being around people. Typically, early on, it's going to be your parents and your siblings and your family, because that's usually who you're close with. So you learn the skills of communication, soft skills, by your environment. And then as you progress through life, I guess you could say, through education, through work, you pick up additional skills. And then, Kris, to your point, now you get to a point where you're not picking up the skills from communicating verbally. You're picking up skills from communicating through written word. So you can excel from that because you're learning from it. Where now, Andy, you're saying that it's important to have, essentially, because we're all working remote, and we have technology, we almost need classes on communication.
Well, it's something to consider, right? In the mix, every muscle in your body or feature of your brain, if you don't practice it, it will fade away, right? So, if you're depriving, as an industry or as a society, we're reducing the amount of person-to-person interaction that someone gets, that's got to have an impact, right? What's the impact of that? It's not nothing, surely, right?
I don't believe so. I think that, as to Kris's point, I think it's visible. I think I've had interactions with some that they've been uncomfortable. I've had a lot of written communication with them, whether it's via text, whether it's via email. The communication was wonderful. But with them in person, they were a little more timid.
Right.
In communicating and speaking, but as soon as they walk away, they sit down, they're going to send you a message. And I'm not saying it's anything improper or angry. It's almost like they're not comfortable speaking face to face, which is why when we started talking about this, I have like all these thoughts in my head about the importance of interpersonal communication skills or soft skills in the world.
But it's funny, isn't it? Like the kind of the WhatsApp chat groups, are they a blessing or a curse? Like, we use them for so many different things. I mean, myself and Phil, our two organisations, we're working together on a project at the minute, and like one of the first things, I think there's like multiple chat groups now from the different streams of different groups of people, and it is convenient, right? It is convenient. It's just when it kind of replaces, or it's if you're not able to, ultimately you do need to, you need the empathy skills, you need the active listening skills. You can't get that from chatting constantly on your phone, right?
Yes, no, you can't. And I know all about those WhatsApp groups.
But it is handy to be able to send your mates a hilarious GIF when you're on a really boring meeting, right?
And you can see him chuckle.
Thanks, Andy. Is that one of my meetings?
Yeah,
Why are you
don't
laughing?
tell anybody we do that. Listen.
It was Nick, actually. We were both working late on a PowerPoint, and then suddenly he put some hilarious GIF in the PowerPoint. I was like, Nick, you can't
Especially
be
when you're
good.
having a serious meeting and someone sends you a message, you smile, and people are like, "Why is that guy smiling?"
Well, that can of course backfire, and that
Yeah.
there is. Of course, with all these things, it's the tool, how to use the tool. You can, like bullying in the workplace, my kids, crikey, like school is tough, right? My kids have just gone into they're 13s or whatever year that is in the US. In the UK, it's like year 9. And year 9's pretty tough year. Going to school is pretty tough. Kids can be tough. And you've got all the stuff that I had to deal with when I was younger. And now they've got all this cyberbullying and people taking pictures of other kids and sending it around. It's kind of like, oh my goodness.
I am so thankful that I did not grow up having that, for the point that you just said. I think being a young child or an adolescent is extremely difficult because of that, where we had issues when we were growing up. Issues as children have been going around, I think, since
forever.
Man had walked the planet. But now what happened was, when we were younger, if you had a problem with one person, it was typically just isolated to your classroom, your environment, or even maybe a little bit bigger to your school. And it wasn't really, you could just avoid them, or maybe over time progressed, it settled down. But now, like you said, like you have one small thing and it's like broadcast to the entire world, where everybody now knows about things or has problems with things. And even like you said, where you can send these messages anonymously, which I think is a big point, not even anonymously, but it's behind text or behind other ways. It's not, and it's just hurtful. And it's much easier for that type of stuff. So I'm thankful that I had the problems that I had, and I feel for those that have those challenges now, because I agree that it's not easy, and everyone's focus and attention onto it, I think, is valid, because I've seen it. Not to digress from our social conversation here, but which leads to. I'm trying not to go all over the place. I'm sorry. I know you have some points you wanted to bring up on this as well, but that whole person of the type of communication, the face-to-face communication versus communication behind the written word, and the emotions that are behind it, and how when you can see someone's reaction to something you're saying versus something you're writing.
Yeah, definitely.
And the impact on them.
Like, Phil, what's your thoughts on like the meeting, the example of the meeting transcription? Like, it doesn't pick up the emotion, right? I mean, you can do sentiment analysis,
Correct.
but the kind of the more normal standard tools, Phil, how have you kind of implemented at your place, like the meeting transcription tool, capability?
That's a good point, really. I mean, we use it primarily to reduce the effort in taking minutes, or more frequently not taking minutes when we should. So it's just kind of having that reference back to it, I suppose, rather than any sort of formal documentation off the back of it. It's just super useful when you're kind of writing notes up, or you're doing some documentation and you're having to refer back to a meeting you were in. It allows you to kind of go back and see accurately what was spoken,
Does
which
it
is quite
save you
handy.
time? When you're having to
Does it
summarize
save
a
time?
meeting? Because I know, like, for in my experience, it's helped me many times where a meeting that I had over a month ago, and then we're circling back on it, and I'm like, I don't remember. So I would ask Copilot and say, hey, did we talk about this particular topic? And it would give me and say, yeah, you talked about this topic at this time, and here's the transcript, and here's a summary. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. It's like, it was super helpful, because I don't remember. Like, I had a meeting with a coworker that last time we had a conversation about something was like a month or two months ago. And it certainly helped me be prepared and not struggle to like, okay, I got to listen to these meetings to remember where did we say it. And you can even specifically ask like, who said this? Was this even brought up? Like for example, I mean, we're all consultants, like we talked about budgets, was a budget part of that conversation? Like, I don't remember.
Sure.
It's been like 6 months, and so you look it up, and it's like, yeah, it was talked about. Budget was talked about. It was this many hours. Like, perfect. So it's very helpful.
Me and Phil were on a meeting not too long ago, and the main sort of organizer there, senior guy, he's like, okay, the transcript's on, so faces up, like everyone can be more present in the meeting. Now, I don't think I'd ever heard it articulated like that before, but it's dead right, actually. Like, unless you're in an organization where you've got a dedicated meeting note taker, which is not, I don't think you get that on most professional services things, right? There's not necessarily the luxury of having someone just taking the meeting notes. If you can let the transcript kind of do the donkey work of taking the notes, and then, well, if you're in the room or if you're on a Teams call, you can kind of like, you guys, you don't know who I'm looking at. Like, I might be really staring at Kris, or I might be really staring at Brad. So the transcript can, there's a benefit to it there, I think. And it all comes down to then how you use that. I was like that example earlier, or like the AI can give you all the information, it can give you the loaded gun. If you've got some slightly bad news to tell someone, like, no, it's definitely not in scope, and then you've got the meeting transcripts, it's like the person who says it's definitely not in scope, the senior person, it's like, there's a meeting and he said, no, okay, we're fine, we'll agree that's not in scope. Just sending in the transcript saying like, no, you're wrong, like, isn't necessarily the best way of doing it, right?
I got receipts. I got receipts now.
I do like the AI transcription because it allows people to communicate and talk without having to worry about taking notes, as we were talking about, so you can focus more on the content of it. But we're talking here about how important social soft skills are. I keep calling them social skills. That's kind of how I reference them.
Same thing, yeah.
It's the importance of soft skills, which again, it's more than just vocabulary, as you alluded to. Or even mentioned, not alluded to, but it's your emotional, it's your empathy, self-awareness, all the points that you had mentioned. And Kris, Phil, Andy, you were talking about how you use AI transcription for meetings. You use AI transcription to craft emails. You use AI to generate PowerPoint presentations. We use AI to generate documentation. We're all saying that there's the importance of soft skills today because we want to have that interpersonal communication with each other. And we're talking about now how with technology, there's a lot of electronic communication, WhatsApp groups, text messaging, emails. Do you feel that soft skills will be important in the future, or there will be a point where they're not as important because everything will be delivered by AI? Whereas, again, I write an email to Kris crafted with AI, like this wonderful, beautiful email. I send it to Kris. Kris says, Copilot, what does this email say?
The classic, yeah.
Write back, respond to Brad that I don't like it. Copilot will create an email, send it back to me, where now the exchanges, when we're using AI, we're being guided, and with it being electronic, how impactful or important will these soft skills? I'm sorry, I know you had a lot you wanted to talk about, but I told you, my mind, I have to try to keep focused. But how important will the soft skills be in the future?
I mean, I think they will always be crucial. I mean, you call them social skills there, and I think that's probably a much better way of phrasing it. Because where AI comms in particular are useful and used the most are in a professional setting, really. And I think if they could make our working lives much more efficient and, to be honest, automate the boring bits, things like documentation or summarizing meetings and writing minutes, then great. I'm all for that because it does free up more time for you to have the water cooler chats with your colleagues or social events and things like that. AI doesn't seem to have encroached too much in that area. So you're still going to need those social skills. I suppose whether the impact of AI will impede the development of them, because you're using them so much, you're not building those communication skills in the same way? I'm not sure. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Here's a good one for you. And by the way, I got ChatGPT to prepare this for me. I was like, I'm going on to a podcast talk about soft skills and AI. Give me some really great sound bites. So, disclaimer: I totally cheated, but this one I like it. AI gives you the answers, but the empathy soft skill helps you ask the right questions. Because if you're not asking the right questions, no amount of knowledge dump, is the right knowledge.
That is spot on. That's because deep. That's spot on, because you do have to know and understand the emotion to know how to prompt a response, how to create a prompt response. And you're right, though. I mean, it's so hard to read and read the room when you're just all you see yourself, right? In a fake background and all that stuff. So, it kind of leads me to I do have a question though. When you are in office and you're meeting face to face, everyone's in a conference room, do you still use Teams to record that meeting in the conference room just so you can get that transcript and summary for Copilot? Or do you just rely on everybody else to take notes?
Yeah, I mean, depends on if it's a workshop or something like that. Yeah, I try to, yes, do that. The downside is that I think sort of in maybe depending on the license you've got with Teams, if you're all on one speakerphone, then it's you doing all the talking. You're the one asking all the questions, and you're the one giving all the responses. So when you try to do the transcript, summary, who said what, it's like, we said everything. But I think maybe that's a technology thing. Maybe I think in Teams, if you've got premium Teams, you can do that, the voice recognition, so it recognizes your own voice, perhaps. I don't know if you...
Interesting.
I'd need to up my hard skills to know the answer to that question.
I'm there with you, and I'd have to go someplace where I'm having a meeting. Again, thankfully in 2025, the need to go to an office has been minimized significantly, depending upon the organization. I know some organizations, well, I don't even want to say depending on the organization. I think depending upon the type of output that you produce for your work. Some things you need to be in person for, some things you don't need to be in person for, a lot of the technical type stuff. But the manual type work, sometimes you have to be there.
Does that change? I know, Brad, we're fully remote, right? Maybe I see you 3-4 times a year.
Yes.
Does that change in terms of camaraderie and better respect because you see each other daily? You're in the office. One of the things that I miss, honestly, is that it's Friday afternoon. Let's go to a pub, right? Let's just hang out after. Or it's a weekend. Hey, man, I'm going to be over here. You want to come meet me over there, and so forth. That you can't have in a full remote setting. So then it does that change now in the way the workforce nowadays, because you can't do that, does that change the way you work together entirely?
I think it does. And I think I didn't really notice this until I went back into the office more. And one thing I realized, and I think it's to the individual, but when I work from home and on Teams meetings all day, it's really quite draining emotionally, and you feel back-to-back Teams meetings, you do feel tired at the end of it, whereas it's kind of the opposite in the office. You can sit in meetings face-to-face all day, and you tend to find you feel a bit more energized from that. For sure, and we're quite lucky in the fact we live in a small island, so it's very easy to go in the office, and our team kind of has the in the office day where everybody's together on a Friday. So we do, go for a drink in the bar at the end of the day, and we sit there and just socialise together. And we're quite lucky, and we've actually got a bar in the office, as Andy knows. So it's quite easy to.
This guy, and when Phil said he's on a small island, he's not talking about the UK. He's talking about the island of Jersey. So it's a really beautiful place. And I mean, I once got a WhatsApp message from Phil. Oh yeah, Friday drinks today, Andy. They'd taken the boats over to France to go for some wine.
We had a couple of ribs and just sailed over to France.
But the generation thing. I think a couple of you mentioned the generation thing earlier. Interestingly, at my organisation, we're looking to we're opening up some more offices and things like that. And really, the driving force for that was more the younger generation, and they like in the kind of the kind of the performance feedback and all that kind of stuff you do to make sure people are on track with their learning and how they're feeling and all the rest of it. It was more the younger generation that were like missing that social interaction, and they want to get into the office on a Wednesday or a Thursday and then go out for drinks afterwards, that sort of stuff, because they're if you're in the younger generation and you're still you don't have maybe got married and kids and all the rest of it, you don't have all the luggage, you're free and single, right? You want to go and have fun. You don't want to be working remotely and just hang up at whatever time in the evening and that's it. That's your 5-minute commute to the living room. That's a bit dull, right?
I do want to throw something out there, though, not just from the age category or the generational category. And Brad and I had talked about this, that we tend to forget the culture aspect of it too, because even though you're categorized as this generation,
sure.
but it depends on the culture that you've grown up with, and so that can play a big role, where you think look, I'm a old millennial, right? Like that's how I'm categorized, but I don't act like that at all. I'm raised differently. My culture is very, very different. So, which is kind of frustrating, because you forget the culture aspect of it. Like if you speak to someone in Japan or Philippines, I mean, they work hard. They want to be, present and so forth. But people forget that, to your point, Andy, you just said hey, it's surprisingly, the younger generations that you're interacted with are the ones that wants to go out and, get together and socialize, while some of us here, they don't want to do that. They just have close, specific friends, and sometimes the majority of the conversation is going to be via text or, chat app.
I think I do miss that. Well, I don't miss going to the office because of all the I call it wasted commute time.
Yeah.
But I do recall having the times where we would go out. We'd go back to some points. It's all valid points. Just to go back to Kris, to your point, I think the video conferencing is great because you can see someone's interactions with you. You can see their emotions. I can talk with you and I can see if you're paying attention. I can see if you're losing and you don't have comprehension of what I'm saying. But also, I think relationships and camaraderie build more once you meet in person, because there's many people that I had the opportunity to speak with for long periods of time. And then once you meet them in person, the relationship changes, because now you have that for something, I don't even know how to classify it, where you have a significant change to it. And I think what opens up with that is another challenge for those that are all remote that you may miss, is it takes effort now to have those conversations of, oh, let's go to the pub, or, oh, let's go do this, because instead of yelling over a cube wall, or maybe bumping into Andy or Phil or you in the dining area to pick up a drink or something to talk to you, you now have to call somebody. I have to check, are they available, right? Are they red? Are they green? Are they yellow? Are they out of office? So now it takes effort versus just a natural interaction. I think that is a big change in this technology world. Maybe with AI, we can get to a point where it doesn't feel that way. It just sort of forces us to talk to each other. I don't know. You think of the future somehow.
Yeah, maybe, because I completely agree there, actually, because I think when I go into the office to speak, quite freely with anybody who might be in, and there's a lot of people, in our office who I wouldn't work with directly. So if I was just working remotely, I wouldn't interact at all probably with them. Whereas when you're in the office, you do have those chats and you just catch up with people and you build those relationships. And kind of working fully remotely, you do risk missing out on that for sure.
Yeah, I think to have a successful, if we kind of move the topic on to a successful partner organization, we're all delivering Microsoft products, right? having your colleagues, people join companies and they leave companies. Some people stay longer, some people stay shorter, right? But generally speaking, if you can build a connection with someone, there's always it's kind of like going through the whole going through the thick and thin thing, right? You kind of want you want people to, when times are tough, you want to get together. You need that pre-existing relationship. You need that trust built up with your teammates. It gives you strength, gives you resilience to whenever there's difficult projects or difficult situations. It's always coming up from time to time, right? It's I think that that personal connection makes a massive difference than if you'd only ever just spoke to everyone through Teams and you didn't get a chance to build that slightly different relationship that you get when you occasionally, has to be every week, but occasionally go out for a meal or go to the pub and have a chat about things, get to know people on a non-work setting, which, unless you kind of do a forced organised Teams call like that, it's no longer the pandemic, so we're no longer we did it, pub quizzes over Zoom or whatever when it was the pandemic and stuff, and
Friday drinks.
Yeah,
that kind of thing's fallen away now, right?
I think
virtual things work.
Virtual things work. There's another component to that, though. For example, if you want to bounce ideas, right?
Right.
Brad had mentioned, it requires a little bit of work, and now you got to look to see, okay, is Brad red? Is he yellow? Is he even his desk? Is he working on something in the middle of something? Clearly, it's not going to show up on his calendar, but he could definitely be working on something. But if you're in an office, I can just walk by and say, Brad's right there. Hey, I'm going to bounce some ideas with you, man. You got time? It's so easy. You can't do that.
I just thought of another an old finance controller I worked not old a while ago. I worked when I was on the end user side. There was a financial controller there, head of finance, and she said she would walk around the office and she'd be like, how are people's desks looking? And it was like the piles of paper. She kind of knew, because some people just suffer in silence, right? And other people are very vocal about when things are difficult. Not everyone's the same. And she would be that in office situation. She likes to know how are people's workloads by wandering around and seeing, if they're slamming the phone down and huffing and puffing. You kind of you don't, if you're all on Teams, you miss all of that, right?
That's a good point. That's a good point. You don't get up that body language that we spoke about, where you're learning from your environment as well. So in this world of AI, these soft skills, it's more than just AI. I think we talk about the world of AI, but it's also the world of technology, I think, as well. AI has a big impact on the communication with it, but technology, which AI is a form of, also is impacting how we communicate with each other, and the stuff that we've been talking about as well.
I guess we've spoken a lot about AI around the kind of the large language models, text summary, that kind of stuff. But another major area of AI is the ability to write code. All right. So if you're, what difference is AI? What's the importance of soft skills? What's the difference on the AI's made? So now you've got the ability for let's say a seasoned developer, so they know what's right, they know what's wrong. They're using AI to generate code really quickly. If you the understanding the requirements, the communication that you have with the client, with the end users to understand what you're building. If the competitive landscape is now that the writing of the code is so much shortened, I'd say there's less time that you're having meetings with the clients as you're maybe doing sprints or whatever, and you've built this much or that much. You can how quickly can you build an app now, Brad, with GitHub in VS Code? With the agentic mode.
It depends. I think they have the tools now. You can track the percentage. I think it depends on what you're working on. Some things it does really well. Some things it does marginally well. Some things it doesn't do well at all with yet.
Okay.
So I think you have to take a look at that. But I think from a productivity point of view, I would definitely say you're talking about 30 to 40%. And again, I'm throwing out an average based upon a wide range of tasks. I have been tracking it. And like I said, some things it will do very, very well, or 80%, 90% of it on the first shot. Even if you're looking at Copilot review, when you request a reviewer for a pull request, the Copilot for that has even gotten much better. And I know for certain cases when you're doing code reviews, Copilot caught some things that or made suggestions that somebody else should have caught, but was overlooked, or maybe they didn't think it was as significant or was nitpicking, and they didn't mention it. So
does
greatly helped.
Does the ability to generate an application faster? Does it mean you need less communication skills because you can just throw out lots of apps, see what sticks, as opposed to spending a lot more time crafting, deeply understanding the requirements, and building the right outcomes with the app. If you can put something together very quickly.
Well, then you're there crossing into the whole vibe coding conversation, where you're just generating stuff. I mean, I think depends on what you're generating and for why.
Okay.
Me wanting to write something at home to use for a utility. You're going to send me down a spiral for like the future of applications, but we'll refrain. We'll save this for another conversation.
Okay.
But I think you still, if you're publishing an app for a customer to use or an end user to use, I think you need to definitely have some code review skills and understanding of what Copilot generates for you. I don't think. I think you still need to have some skills to properly review the code and validate the code and adjust the code as necessary. But it still can do some amazing things. I'm not saying it can't, because it does write some code, and in some cases, it probably wrote it better than I would have, and I'll be one of the ones to admit it. That anybody will tell you that it's not doing well isn't being totally honest. But again, like I said, there's a range of it.
Is there a parallel there between I've sort of done a little bit on Copilot, for GitHub inside VS Code, but the problem is I'm not a developer to start with. So you've got to have those development skills to review what it's giving you. And so let's translate. What's the parallel for meetings and workshops and all the rest of it? If you're really good at delivering workshops, and if you're really good at producing output from workshops that you feed back to the client, if you've already got that skill and you look at what Copilot gave you and you're like, okay, yeah, tweak it a little bit, then send it. I guess is similar. Is that a similar situation to the whole vibe coding thing?
Well, I think it depends on the language as well. And I think, if you're referring to Business Central and AL, I think it's improving. It's getting better. I think depending upon the models that you use. My only fear with that is now we have a lot of individuals who understand the language, so that you do have a wide group of talent that can review the code.
Okay.
But just as we talked about with communication skills, and if you listen to some of the other episodes, I mention this often, I think the coding skills would decrease, because I think the need for coding will change. It's be more human language for development, because it's no longer going to be, even if you look at back the evolution of programming or development, you started with assembly language. I took assembly language in college, by the way. I took the class where you're doing the pop and all that other stuff and the registers, and then you progress to having languages like COBOL, Pascal, C, where you have written in code. It still all takes it compiles it down to the machine level for language. But I think as we're progressing now with Copilot, you're now prompting for applications to be developed.
Okay.
So I think there will be a change to where you no longer need to code as we think about it today, because I think you're going to tell a system what it wants. The system's going to translate it into a form that can be used by the computer. I think we're going to take out that middle piece. See, right now, everybody's saying GitHub code. This is my imagination. You see, you're going to get me on a tangent on this stuff. I'm sorry. You have GitHub Copilot right now that's going to draft code in a language such as AL.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be AL? Why can't GitHub Copilot generate code that does what you want based upon how you articulate that within your prompt? Again, would that be a social skill? Being able to articulate what you want to Copilot, then it can generate an application for you, right? So this is where I'm saying today we're if you follow my progression, that we're basing everything based upon what we know today. Whereas same individuals with the horse and buggy when the automobile was invented, right? They start comparing the horse and buggy to the automobile, but look at the progressions as the automobile had come around, where it's not even the same anymore.
Yeah, you had a good point of like, what would be the future language? You had mentioned English or a good structure. There's going to be some sort of, if you look at a prompt, how proper prompt, right? There's a structure in the best way you can instruct ChatGPT, choose whatever AI you have. So you're right, Brad. You have to understand a proper structure of articulating of what you want. And I think first is like, what kind of task, what's the instruction, and you got to put the context. What kind of a persona of that ChatGPT should they take, and then what the expectation of the result, right? Those are the typical structure of, I guess in this sense, is a syntax of what a prompt should be. So you have to learn those things. So yeah.
And do you think it's prompting? I guess it's is it a soft skill or a hard skill talking to the LLMs?
Ooh, I think it's both, because you got to be nice. Sometimes you got to be nice to those.
That's a good philosophical question.
That's a good one.
Well, just on one tail end, just to finish the thing, I won't go off on a tangent on that, but I think we will lose that development ability because individuals aren't going to have that learning period in the middle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have the senior developers now who understand the languages today. Again, I'm emphasizing the languages today. It doesn't mean, everyone has the question of what's going to happen with senior developers if you don't have the opportunity to learn as a junior developer, because Copilot's a bunch of can simulate junior developers and you need a senior to go through it. After giving it some thought, I was like, wow, we're not going to have senior developers. But I think what's going to happen is I think development's going to change. It's going to adapt to developing with Copilot versus learning a language and being able to process the language. Again, how many COBOL programmers do you know today?
There's not many.
So I think that will go
Unless
with that.
You
but I didn't mean to cut you off. Go back. I didn't mean to jump in. I just want to throw that last thing in there.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's you had Andy. You said it requires soft skills, or Brad. Yeah, you kind of have to be nice sometimes. You got to structure it properly, and you got to be like, hey, this is you are this agent, and you are instructed to do this. So there's a syntax you follow, and at the same time, you got to be nice to it. You can't just say, hey, do this properly. They'll remember you if you're nice to them.
Yeah, exactly. The Microsoft, they're like the dev guy from Microsoft, whose name has just escaped me from the minute. He always talks about tacos, and he does a lot of. He says like if you're like the LLMs have sourced from the internet, right? And in the internet, there's the nice side of the internet, and there's also the like slightly shady side of the internet where there's flame wars and trolls and all the rest of it. His comment is, if you're nice to the AI, maybe you're tapping into the nicer side of all that training that it's done.
That gives you better answers.
I like that.
Someone asked me this past weekend. It was another parent. They're not in our space. They're not in a tech space. They're in a veterinarian, and she was asking me of my opinion, and I'm going to ask you guys the same thing. Hey, my kids are in their teens. They're about ready to go to college. She was like, what I remember, you go into tech. The question that she had was, should my kids go to computer science? Should they learn how to program? Should they learn how to code? And that was an answer that was very difficult for me to give, because if you asked me 3, 4, 5 years ago, it's like, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of that opportunity, but because of Copilot AI, ChatGPT, Grok, does that change? Can you learn how to code by just working with a Copilot /Grok /ChatGPT or whatever? Can they learn it just as much than in a class setting?
That is a whole different episode.
And I was like, I don't know how to answer that.
That is, I wish I don't have a pen with me, but we need to, Kris, jot that down. We'll do a future of development.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that, man. I don't know. It's a philosophically.
I think we need to get
You'll have to get some
together for that.
Some developers in for that one. I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to answer that.
Well, it's just what you're talking about there, Chris. Should you go into that and what we're talking about? So it's.
But what you said earlier, Brad, about assembly. Oh, sorry, Phil. You were saying.
Yeah, it kind of leads in. We talk about how more than just AI, how technology is kind of changing our soft skills, our social skills, and I think that the style of learning actually and the tools we use to learn has changed massively. Because what we see now, particularly in the younger generation, Brad, is like short form media is king, right? Everywhere you go, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's kind of short snippets, and I think the way people learn has changed, and we kind of have to adapt our styles as well to do that. And we find, back in the day where you'd have huge day-long training sessions with a user that were draining actually, and we always thought that after a couple of hours people kind of switch off anyway. But now it's especially online and remote, you can afford to do much shorter but more frequent kind of sessions on there, and that's probably more akin to how naturally people learn in bite-sized chunks. So we can kind of use technology, use AI to support that. Make it easier to learn, feed it into your point there, Chris, and I think AI is one of the tools we use now to learn things. Rather than just go to Google and find blogs, we're asking ChatGPT, we're asking Copilot, and it's finding those materials on our behalf. So
it's wild.
So Phil, back to the original question.
Yes,
like in the age of AI, are soft skills more important or less important? Or the same? Does AI's not been made any difference to the necessity for them?
I think they're a differentiator. So why do people hire Business Central consultants to come and deliver their projects? It's always been because they know the product and they understand kind of how to implement it. But in theory, you could go to ChatGPT and ask it how to implement Business Central and what you need to do and take it step by step. And if you followed it, you'd probably get there as an end user. So the soft skills really differentiate us and AI, I think.
Totally. That's exactly what I'd written down there. Like the soft skills, they become whilst as AI takes over some of the burden of some work, it kind of concentrates the difference of the delivery that you make and the feeling, that ability to do good delivery. I think it's someone with excellent soft skills, really fantastic soft skills. Maybe their project is going through bumps, but at the end of it, the customer's still happy because you took them on the journey, you took them through the bumps, okay. Versus someone with not so good soft skills, that. It's more difficult to do a good delivery because the difference becomes, knowing Business Central becomes the hygiene factor, right? And the ability to bring people with you on the journey is always been important, but it becomes more important.
That is true. I think the confidence goes out the door when you don't have that soft people skills. When you're especially when you're communicating, you can only go far with the email responses using Copilot, but when it comes to like calming the room, you're going to need that soft skills, because you're right. I mean, when things goes in chaos, when you have the proper soft skills, you calm the room, right? And it's like, okay, this guy he knows what he's talking about. He's translating it. He understands us. That's important.
That goes back to a few things they said. Presence. I think, Phil, you had mentioned that early on, is presence. And what it also ties back to, from what I'm hearing, is all what we've been talking about is it's not just the interpersonal or the social skills. It's the connection. It's you're building the relationship between individuals that you can't get if you're doing that through AI or using technology. I think, after all, we are a communal species. We like to be with people as much as, even myself, I like to be alone 99% of the time. Occasionally I like to be around people. So I think what you're saying, or what I hear you're saying, is that relationship building is an important part of an implementation, to keep it into the space that we're all in today. The application, use, and function and how to that consultant may not be, again, they have experiences. I'm not trying to devalue anything, but the information's easier or more readily available, right? Easier to access, more readily available on how to use Business Central. You need someone with that relationship, with that experience that you can build a relationship with, build trust in. I think we talk about that as well, to help give you that comfort as you're going through a journey. Right? It's almost like being, like I think Kris, you talked about before, like being on a plane. Are you going to be comfortable being on a plane if it's on autopilot, even though there's no pilot in the seat, even though a pilot probably flies a very small portion of the time at this point? Or would you feel more comfortable if a pilot was sitting in the seat?
Yeah.
Depends on the pilot, I guess. Yeah, but you make some good points there, because I think it's the experience that you bring. Because the number of times I've been asked by a customer, what do other people do?
Yeah,
we've got the same problem, and you kind of you bring that experience of other implementations and how common problems are solved by other organisations. And I'm sure AI could do that, but there's a high value, I think, by people placed on lived experience, and someone who's personally been through it.
That's a really good point. If you look at all the documentation of the official of how Business Central does a particular process, that is not the same as how a real world company deals with the day in, day out mad world that we have to deal with. Like vendors don't send you perfect invoices with the PO quoted on it every time, right? Yeah. Like you have to deal with the nonsense of nothing matches, and how you're going to do that.
I got a good analogy for this one, because and why soft people skills and experience help in situations like that. Like if you ever climb a mountain, pick whatever mountain, and there's Sherpas. You guys heard about Sherpas, right? The Sherpas are really the people like, hey, I've been up there many, many times. I know what to do in situations that are crazy or different. Do you need them? No. You could probably ask AI, and it's like, how do I prepare? Show me the map where I need to stop. That's fine. You could probably try it, but it's going to be rough for you. But if you have a Sherpa, it's a lot easier, because then you have someone they can rely on and say, hey, I'm in the situation, this map says we should be here, but the Sherpa is like, no, the weather's changed. You got to be at this area, because AI is not going to know what the variables of what life throws at you. So
it might get it wrong, right? Like an experienced person, has gone through the process before. That's the whole thing with AI. It's not always accurate. It's you've got to check it. So if you're just relying on AI for answers, that sometimes it's a concern.
Yeah. or I'm kind of like staring into space, because like what is it going to be next week?
That's the other thing, right? The models change in the background. Yes. I mean, like just talking on models, like the transition on ChatGPT from 4.0 to 5, massive backlash on Reddit and various other internet forums, because they're saying that like they've dumbed it down, and people were using, you got used to a certain type of response from the prompt you developed, because developing complicated prompts is a skill, like you were saying earlier, and then suddenly the models changed in the background, and that prompt that worked yesterday today doesn't work.
Or it gives you a different answer.
That's what I think about. Even this, I think by the time this is released, this conversation may be dated on some things. I say that jokingly, but the world is moving at a rapid rate, and I think that as we all talked about technology, and specifically technologies at start and now into the AI world, does affect and impact soft skills. And I think that it's still, and today, it's an important part of someone's abilities, capabilities, and aptitude, and you put any classification to be able to have those soft skills. And
that's
Andy,
a differentiator, right, Brad? Like I feel like that's going to be a future differentiator, because anybody can use Copilot to implement things now, right? Like it's pretty straightforward. Everyone has a structured template, whatever. But I think the differentiator of people you work with is going to be that soft people skills, and how they're going to guide you, and how they're going to be there for you. And once you're done, are they still going to be there for you? You know what I mean? Like, are they going to check in with you, and how's it going with Business Central? Here's a few things you could do. I mean, that relationship, it's going to be important. AI is not going to check in with you. It only checks in with you when you ask for it.
I think that's the key word, relationship. I think what we've all talked about, I think to me, the common denominator to all of this, whether it's from an implementation or the inner office working, is relationships. So I think it's good. Andy, Phil, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon.
Lots of interesting pointers there. Me and Phil have got to write our directions talk on soft skills and AI.
Well, so we can have a follow-up with this if you want, or even if you want to talk on the telephone. My mind could have gone. These conversations sometimes it's tough for me to hold on because we can go down so many different paths or so many different roads with it, and staying on point is extremely important. But we do truly value the time that you spent to speak with us today, because like I always say, time's the currency of life. Once you spend it, you can't get it back. So anytime anybody spends any time with us, we greatly appreciate that. So if anyone would like to talk to you more about soft skills and AI in the workplace, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you, Andy?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Andy Wingate, or I think you can, or if you go to my blog, blog.wingate365.com, I've links to all the socials and whatnot there, but you'll definitely be able to find me on LinkedIn.
How about yourself, Phil?
Yeah, LinkedIn's good for me as well. Phil Berrill, or the blog site is berrill.net.
Great, thank you. Andy, I will have to say, I'm embarrassed to say, when you were talking about your blog just now, I just realized that Wingate 365 is your last name. After all these years of this.
Wingate is his last name, not 365.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes
I had to pause there for a minute. Like, I didn't know he's 365 as part of his
No, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
That right there, I'm embarrassed to say that I looked at it. Like you see some of these domain names that there's many of us that blog or communicate, have websites, and a lot of them will use some variation of something. And sometimes I wonder, well, where did they get that?
He loves Windows so much, he changed his last name to Wingate.
Well, I thought the Wingate, it did. I thought it had to be with something like that, with like a Windows 365. You're being catchy, cheeky. Ready?
There is an application. There was an application, Windows Gateway, which had wingate.com or whatever. That one was gone. So I had to dream up something else.
So like I said, I bring this stuff up when I have it, but it just clicked with me. So
okay.
Now again, thank you both, and we look forward to speaking with you both again soon.
Thanks very much for having us on.
Right.
Thanks for having us on, Brad. Nice to meet you both.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com, and you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io, and my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.